Hello, this is the Mushroom Wizard, and I'm returning once again with yet another presentation regarding the mushrooms found in Saskatchewan and the way in which we go about identifying and picking those mushrooms. So today, this is another presentation regarding agaric mushrooms that are found in Saskatchewan, but there are so many agarics that I've had to look at alternative ways to group them together beyond just the fact that they are agaric and have gills. So today we're going to be looking at some mini mushrooms of Saskatchewan, so relatively small mushrooms. The genre that we will be looking at are Agaricus, Cantharellula, Hygrocybe, and Rhodocolibia. What should you expect from this presentation? Well, this presentation will include agaric mushrooms, and if you recall, an agaric mushroom has a stipe, a cap, and then gills beneath that cap. But these will be agaric mushrooms that are under 2 inches in size. We've already seen some of those. If you recall back the presentation on inky caps, the fairy ink cap was a very small mushroom, for instance. So these mushrooms, generally speaking, you won't want to just eat them on their own because they're so small. You'll have to pick them in quantity, and they'll be good to add to maybe a sauce or a soup. Or if you're doing a mushroom mix or a vegetable mix, some of these are quite colorful and beautiful to look at, so they can be a nice addition in terms of garnish for that mix, or just garnish on a plate if you're looking to impress somebody. So let's get started here. The first mushroom we're going to look at is one of my favorites. This is the Grayling, also known as the humpback. This is Cantharellula umbonata, and it is a strange little mushroom. So the cap is streaked with light and dark gray. You can see it there, hence the name Grayling, of course. It starts off campanulate, and that is basically the shape of the bell that you would find in an old school bell tower. It maintains that umbo while it flattens out, and then becomes umbilicate at maturity. So that's where it has a depression, but still has the umbo in the middle. And that umbo that you can see there, that's the little hump in the middle, is actually quite pointed. It is smooth to velvety to the touch. The margin is down-rolled when young, but becomes somewhat wavy, or else is just smooth later on. It is a fairly thin-fleshed mushroom, and then it's up to maybe 2 inches in diameter, usually smaller than that. Here is a size reference for you. So a little tiny mushroom. The gills are white, sometimes developing red spots. It says spits. Again, that's my autocorrect. Apologies. And then they turn tan with age. These gills are decurrent, running down the stipe. They are close together. And here's the defining feature of this mushroom. They are forked. The short gills are completely absent. But this is deeply forked. You can see all of that occurring there. And they produce a white spore print. The stipe is off-white to gray to brown near the base. It is cylindrical to rooting. If you recall, rooting is a shape similar to that of a carrot, where it's thickest at the top and then kind of tapering towards almost a point at the base. It has a central attachment to the cap. It is both flexible and fibrous. You should be able to wrap it almost around your finger, and the stipe is up to about 4 inches high. These are symbiotic mushrooms. They are symbiotic with polytrichium mosses. So you'll always find them growing in moss. And you can see that happening here. Very cute little mushroom too. They are terrestrial. Other than that, kind of mingling with the moss at the rooting areas. They are scattered to gregarious. Often you'll find them in large groups, which is why picking this small mushroom can be rewarding because you'll find so many of them often at once. They are also often concealed beneath the moss, just not quite above the level of the moss. So if you do find them, give some gentle pushes down on that moss to see if you can pop more of them up. And then these are found summer throughout the fall. I have found that one in the campgrounds around Meadow Lake. These are good to eat. They're a nice tasting mushroom. As I've already mentioned, they are insubstantial, but they occur in large quantities, and that can make up for it. And then these are for intermediate mushroom pickers. Though I can't really think of anything that you could mistake this for, especially looking at those gills. And now here's a very beautiful little mushroom. This is the Scarlet Waxcap, Hygrocybe coccinea. Hygrocybe is a genus that includes a lot of very beautiful mushrooms, but nothing dangerously toxic. Some are mildly toxic, but nothing dangerously toxic, and some are edible like this one. So the cap is scarlet red, fading with age. It's sometimes yellowish orange around the margin there, where it gets a bit ragged. These are convex to campanulate, so again that bell shape or else a rounded shape. Then they flatten out with age and then become shallowly depressed like what you're seeing there. The cuticle is smooth and waxy. If you run your finger across it and then like rub your fingers together after, there should be like almost a waxy feel that has come off. The margin is shallowly scalloped. And you can see that scalloping there with how ragged that margin looks. It's up to about 2 inches in diameter. Very small. Stunningly beautiful. The gills are pink to orange in color. They're adnexed, distant. Short gills are frequent between each regular gill. And then these produce a white spore print. And there it is. And that would be a tiny little spore print if ever there was one. The stipe is red at the apex up top there and becoming orange and then gradually turning yellow at the base. It is cylindrical, so the same width throughout. It has a central attachment to the cap, and it is 2 inches high. Their ecology, as of yet, is not fully understood. These are terrestrial. They are found in woodlands or grassy woodland margins. They are scattered to gregarious. These are found summer through fall. In terms of their edibility, they don't really taste like much. They're insubstantial. A good one for garnish, for brightening up a dish. And then these are for intermediate mushroom pickers. Not sure what you would even mistake this one for. Here's another Hygrocybe species. This is just as beautiful. This is the golden waxcap, Hygrocybe flavescens. Yellow to orange in color, brilliantly yellow to orange in color. Convex to campanulate once again, flattening with age, sometimes becoming shallowly depressed like this one is doing. The cuticle is smooth and sticky at times, so especially after rainfall. The margin is striate and wavy. You see that wavy margin occurring there. These grow up to about 2 inches in diameter. Tiny little mushroom. Here you can see some of that color variation, and you can see a very classic shape there. That's the campanulate shape I was talking about, more or less. So shaped like a bell in a bell tower. Here's a size reference for you. Not a big mushroom. The gills are white, becoming yellow in color. They are adnexed, distant from each other. Short gills are frequent. You can see how many short gills are there. Oh my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 short gills in places between the regular gills. There are mushrooms as well that produce a white spore print. Sorry, I was distracted by that cobweb there and the little spider. I didn't even notice that. So these are yellow in color in terms of the stipe. They are cylindrical to clavate. So clavate would be that club shape. They have a central attachment to the cap. They're 2 inches high. Once again, these have an unknown ecology. They are terrestrial. They are found in woodlands or grassy woodland margins. They're scattered to gregarious. These are found summer throughout the fall. Their edibility, once again, is poor. They have very little taste to them, insubstantial, a beautiful garnish for brightening up any sort of mushroom or vegetable dish. These are for intermediate mushroom pickers. Not really much you'll mistake that for. So this here is a mushroom that I chose not to include in the field mushrooms section. It is in the Agaricus genus, simply because it's so little. So this is the mini wood mushroom, Agaricus samotus, also known as the wine agaricus. It is very little. I thought it would do well here. So this is a mushroom that is off-white with a streaked brown center on its cap. It darkens with age, often taking on a wine violet color. It is convex, flattening out, or becoming umbinate. Umbinate is where it has that lump in the middle, but it's flat everywhere else. The margin is enrolled at first. You can see that here. It then later on becomes either smooth or appendiculate as it separates from the partial veil that hides the gills. And then the cap, it will bruise orangish yellow. And you can see that bruising occurring here very clearly. These grow up to about 2 inches in diameter. Here's a size reference for you. So a very little mushroom. You'd need quite a few of them. The gills are pink, becoming brown with age. They are freed from the stipe. They are very crowded together. The short gills are present, but not overwhelming in number. And there is a chocolate brown spore print that you find with all Agaricus mushrooms. The stipe is off-white in color. It is cylindrical to bulbous. You can see that bulb there at the bottom. It has a central attachment to the cap. It's up to about 2 inches high and about a ½ inch at most in terms of its thickness. Flared ring. That's how I would describe that annulus. There you can see it again there, the annulus, very clearly. So this is a species whose name is used to describe multiple species. Likely Agaricus samotus is a species from Europe that's just used to describe mushrooms that we have yet to really classify here. It is saprobic, as all Agaricus mushrooms are. It is terrestrial. It's found in woodlands and is solitary to gregarious. So if you find only one, that's not really going to be exciting. If you find 30 or 40, that can add to a meal for sure. Then these are found summer through fall. They have a good edibility. This smells of anise seed or black licorice. If you can find enough of them, that'll be great. These are for intermediate mushroom pickers. And finally, we have the buttercup, Rhodocolibia butyracea. So the cap of this mushroom is reddish brown to brown, fading to reddish tan with age. And it is palest at the margins, as you can see, and then, of course, darkest in the center. So it's got a bit of variability in terms of its coloration. The shape is convex, and it flattens out and becomes depressed, as you can see that happening here. Sometimes this will develop a shallow umbo and then become umbilicate, which is where you have a depression with an umbo in the middle. And if you look, it looks like that very central area that's darkest is actually still upraised. So that is likely what is happening here. The cuticle is smooth with a greasy sort of buttery feel, almost as if you have butter on your fingers, especially when it's wet. It is hygrophanous. So if you recall, hygrophanous is a type of mushroom where when it is wet, it has a very different coloration than when it is dry. And as the mushroom dries out, it takes on a two-toned appearance, often drying out either from the center or the margins, but being two completely different colors as a result while it's doing so. The margin is smooth, becoming wavy later on, as you can see it is happening here. And then it's up to about 2 inches in diameter once again. And here you can see that umbilicate on the left-hand side. And it's got that sort of umbo in the middle, kind of a cup shape, hence the name Buttercup. And then a newer, fresher one on the right-hand side. But you can also see two very distinctly different tones. One of these is in dry weather, one of these is in moist weather. Here's a size reference for you. So not much larger than that penny. The gills are off-white in color, becoming pale pink with age. And these are some very unique gills, actually. They are adnexed, so you can see them dipping in deeply before they touch the stipe. They're also serrated, very jagged. You can see the serration is actually quite large on these gills. You should be able to see them no problem just by looking at it. They are close together. Short gills are present, but not crazy amounts of them. And then it has a white or pinkish white spore print. And here's a close-up of those gills. You can see how ragged they are. So that would be a defining feature of this mushroom for sure. So the stipe is tan to cinnamon brown. It is pruinose when young, and you can see that happening a bit at the base here. Actually, you can still see that white powder that we use to describe a pruinose mushroom. That could be mycelium, but it's one or the other. This is a clavate stipe. You can see that it gradually tapers upwards towards the apex, and this becomes hollow with age as well. And it has a central attachment to that cap, and is up to about 2 inches high, as we can expect from a mushroom in a mini mushroom presentation. In terms of their ecology, these are saprobic. These grow specifically off of pine needle litter. So you can see some deciduous leaves there, so it's a bit misleading, but there would be pine needle litter beneath it. That's what it would be attaching itself to, because that's what it's feeding off of. So this is going to be found in the boreal forest or in mixed forests. They're quite gregarious. When you find them, they should be in a group, and they are found spring throughout the fall, so all year long. They are good in terms of their edibility. They are good for dehydrating. These are for intermediate mushroom pickers. Despite that, I did provide one potential lookalike here, and that's Galerina marginata, which really it's a very vague resemblance. I suppose at some point in that sort of color variation, it can take upon the same color as the funeral bell, but the funeral bell should be attached directly to wood. And it would have very, very different gills. It wouldn't have the jagged gills, and it certainly wouldn't have a pinkish white spore print. And that's everything for the mini mushrooms of Saskatchewan. So there are many, many, many mini mushrooms, like very small species in Saskatchewan. The vast majority of them are just of unknown edibility because nobody really cares. It's just not something you pick to eat, because that's like, why would you? That's like picking a blade of grass to eat or something along that lines. So this is the Mushroom Wizard, and hope you are staying safe with your mushroom picking. And if you like this video or any of the others, or me in general, just hit the like button on the or the subscribe button there in YouTube. All right, have yourself a nice day or night, whatever it is.